For nearly 11 years, I believed endurance was the same thing as love. Lauren and I lived in a small Montana town where winter settled over the houses like a warning. The streets went silent after dark. Snow gathered against the porch steps, and the wind found every crack in the walls. I was always the one who sealed those cracks. The mortgage came from my account. So did the utilities, insurance, groceries, repairs, vacations, school expenses, and every emergency that arrived without permission. When the furnace failed in January, I fixed it. When the roof leaked, I climbed onto it. When Ethan wrecked his first car, I found a replacement. When Cody overdrew his account, I paid the fees before Lauren even knew. Their biological father was alive, but presence is not the same thing as existence. He called occasionally, sent birthday messages late, made promises that dissolved before anyone could depend on them. I was the man who stayed. I never demanded that Ethan or Cody call me Dad. I understood that title belonged to someone else, even if he had done little to earn it. I only wanted to be treated like a human being inside the home I was holding together. For years, I convinced myself that their indifference was temporary. Teenagers grow up. Young men mature. Gratitude comes later. That was the lie I lived on. The truth arrived at dinner. It was an ordinary evening. Lauren had made roast chicken. Snow tapped softly against the kitchen window. Ethan and Cody finished eating, pushed back their chairs, and started toward the hallway while their plates remained on the table. "Could you boys help clean up tonight?" I asked. Nothing harsh. Nothing unreasonable. Ethan stopped and looked at Cody. They shared a small smile, the kind people exchange when they have already decided you are beneath them. Then Ethan turned toward me. "When you're gone," he said, "nobody will even notice." Cody laughed under his breath. I looked at Lauren. That was the moment that mattered most. Not the insult. Not the laughter. Her silence. She lowered her eyes to her plate and continued eating as though nothing serious had happened. She did not defend me. She did not correct them. She did not even say my name. The room became very quiet. Something inside me died without making a sound. I could have shouted. I could have reminded them who paid for the food in their mouths and the roof above their heads. I could have listed every sacrifice until dawn. Instead, I nodded. "Understood," I said. That night, Lauren slept beside me while I stared into the darkness. I thought about 11 years of bills. 11 years of favors. 11 years of solving problems before anyone else even knew they existed. They believed life simply worked. Cars started. Insurance claims disappeared. Late fees were forgiven. Broken appliances repaired themselves. Money appeared when plans became expensive. They did not see me. They saw a system. So I shut the system down. I did not cancel the mortgage or leave them without electricity. I was not interested in cruelty. I simply stopped rescuing them. When Ethan's truck began making a grinding noise, he left the keys on the counter. I walked past them. When Cody's insurance company demanded additional documents, Lauren placed the envelope beside my coffee. I moved it aside. When a banking error froze Ethan's card before a weekend trip, he called me 6 times. I did not answer. For the first time, every problem remained exactly where it belonged. With them. The collapse was not dramatic at first. It came in small humiliations. Cody missed a payment and was charged a penalty. Ethan's truck finally stopped running. A planned vacation was cancelled because Lauren had assumed I would cover the deposit. The washing machine began leaking, and nobody knew which valve to turn. They became angry, then frightened, then desperate. "You're doing this on purpose," Ethan accused me one evening. We stood in the garage beside his dead truck. His face was red from the cold. "No," I said. "I'm doing nothing. That is what you wanted. You know I need this for work." "I know. So fix it." I looked at him for a long moment. "When I'm gone, nobody will notice." His expression changed. "That was a joke." "No," I said. It was a belief. Cody called me cruel when his insurance lapsed. Lauren called me selfish when the household budget collapsed under expenses I had quietly absorbed for years. They spoke as if my support had been a law of nature. As if rain fell. As if winter came. As if Ryan paid. Then the begging began. Lauren found me sitting alone on the back porch one evening. The snow had started again, covering the yard in clean white silence. She sat beside me and pulled her coat tightly around herself. The boys were immature, she said. They didn't understand what they were saying. I watched my breath disappear into the cold. They understood enough to say it. They're sorry. They're scared. Isn't that the same thing? No. She began to cry. She asked me to repair Ethan's truck, to straighten out Cody's insurance, to restore the automatic payments, to go back to the way things had been. That phrase stayed with me. The way things had been. Me exhausted. Them comfortable. Me invisible. Them protected. I turned toward her. Respect should exist before someone needs help again. She looked at me as though I had become a stranger. Maybe I had. Or maybe I had finally stopped being useful long enough to become visible. A few weeks later, I packed my belongings. There was less than I expected. Some clothes. Tools. Photographs from years when I still believed smiles meant belonging. Lauren stood in the bedroom doorway while I closed the last box. Are you really throwing away 11 years? She asked. I shook my head. No. I'm accepting what those years were. Ethan and Cody did not come downstairs. Perhaps they expected me to return. Perhaps they believed I would cool down, remember the bills, and resume my place beneath the weight of their lives. I moved to another town 3 hours away. A smaller house. A quieter life. The calls came constantly at first. A warning light on the truck. A payment they could not cover. A problem with the bank. A leak beneath the kitchen sink. Lauren left messages saying the family was falling apart. Ethan apologized. Cody said he had not realized how much I did. I listened to none of them twice. Eventually, I stopped answering entirely. The silence that followed was not empty. It was freedom. For the first time in 11 years, my money remained in my account. My evenings belonged to me. When something broke, it was my problem alone. And strangely, that felt peaceful. Life taught them what my words never could. The man they claimed nobody would notice had been holding nearly everything together. Once I stepped away, every hidden burden became visible. Every sacrifice gained a name. Mine. I still wonder whether they miss me or merely miss what I provided. Perhaps there is no difference to people who only value a man when they need him. I cared for them. I gave more than anyone had the right to expect. But care without respect becomes servitude, and sacrifice without gratitude becomes permission to be used. So tell me honestly, was I wrong to leave them with the consequences of their own contempt? Or would staying have meant disappearing completely? The first week without saving them felt unnatural. For 11 years, I had trained myself to react to every vibration of my phone. A call from Lauren meant something had broken. A message from Ethan meant money. Cody usually appeared only after ignoring a problem until it became an emergency. I had lived like a fireman inside a house whose residents enjoyed playing with matches. Now I watched the phone ring. And let it ring. Ethan's truck was the first real casualty. He had ignored the grinding noise for months because he believed I would eventually crawl beneath the engine, identify the problem, order the parts, and spend a Saturday fixing what his carelessness had destroyed. The truck died outside a grocery store. He called me 7 times. On the 8th call, I answered. "You need to come get me," he said. There was no greeting. No apology. Just an order shaped like desperation. "I'm 3 hours away. You know what I mean. Come back and fix this." I stood at the window of my small rental house and watched snow settle on the empty road. The town I had moved to was quieter than the one I had left. Nobody here knew me as Lauren's husband or the boys' emergency account. I was simply Ryan. I don't repair your truck anymore. He breathed heavily into the phone. So you're really doing this? Doing what? Punishing us because of one stupid sentence. I closed my eyes. People always reduce the final wound to one sentence. They never count the 1,000 smaller cuts that came before it. The ignored birthdays. The unpaid favors. The smirks. The requests without gratitude. The way they spoke about their biological father with reverence even after he disappointed them, then spoke to me like an employee despite everything I gave. That sentence only confirmed what your behavior had already shown me. You're being dramatic. No, Ethan. I was dramatic when I believed sacrifice would make us a family. This is clarity. He cursed and hung up. 2 hours later, Lauren called. She said Ethan had paid for a tow truck he could not afford. The mechanic wanted more money than he had in his account. He might miss work. He might lose his job. She presented each consequence as evidence of my cruelty. I listened until she ran out of breath. Then I asked, "Why is any of that my responsibility?" The silence on the line was long. Because you've always helped. There it was. Not because they loved me. Not because I was family. Because I had always helped. A habit had been mistaken for an obligation. I helped because I thought I mattered. You do matter. Then why did you say nothing at that table? Her voice softened. I froze. For 11 years? She began crying. I hated that her tears still had power over me. I hated that some part of me wanted to drive back, repair the truck, settle the bill, and apologize for making everyone uncomfortable. That instinct terrified me. It showed me how deeply I had been trained. I need time, she whispered. So do I. I ended the call. Cody's trouble arrived 3 days later. His insurance company canceled his policy after he failed to provide documents they had requested repeatedly. In the past, he would have forwarded the emails to me without reading them. I would have called the company, waited on hold, corrected the information, paid whatever fee appeared, and told him it was handled. This time, he discovered the cancellation during a traffic stop. His car was impounded. He sent me a photograph of the notice with a single message. Fix this. I stared at those words for a long time. No please. No explanation. No awareness that I no longer lived in his house. I typed back 2 words. Call them. His response arrived instantly. They won't listen to me. I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. Of course they would not listen. Cody had never learned how to speak patiently to people who could not be ordered around. He had mistaken my tolerance for the way the world worked. The world was beginning to correct him. That evening, Lauren left a voicemail saying the family was in crisis. Ethan was borrowing rides to work. Cody could not afford the impound fees. The washing machine had flooded part of the basement. A credit card payment was overdue. The furnace had begun making a strange noise. Every sentence described something I once would have solved. Every sentence made me feel lighter. Not happy. Never happy. Freedom can resemble cruelty when viewed by the people who benefited from your captivity. A week later, they came to my door. Lauren stood between her sons on the porch. Ethan looked exhausted. Cody looked furious. They had driven 3 hours through heavy snow, apparently believing distance was the only thing separating them from the man they used to control. I did not invite them inside. Lauren glanced past me at the modest furniture and bare walls. So this is where you've been. This is where I live. We need to talk. You can talk from there. Cody stepped forward. My car is still impounded because of you. Your car is impounded because you drove without insurance. You handled the insurance. I used to. That's the same thing. No. It is the difference between responsibility and dependence. His jaw tightened. Ethan placed a hand on his brother's shoulder, but he was not trying to calm him for my sake. They needed something, and even Ethan understood that rage would not purchase it. Lauren spoke carefully. We made mistakes. You made choices, The boys were immature. They were old enough to enjoy everything I paid for. Ethan finally looked at me. I'm sorry about what I said. The words were correct. His eyes were not. What are you sorry for? He hesitated. For saying nobody would notice when you were gone. Why? Because it hurt you? Or because your truck broke? His face hardened. That's not fair. Fairness would have been respecting me before the tow bill arrived. Lauren reached for my arm. I stepped back. That small movement broke something in her expression. For years, she had relied on touch to soften my decisions. A hand on my shoulder. A kiss after an argument. A quiet promise that things would improve once the boys matured. They had matured enough to despise me with adult precision. She lowered her hand. What do you want from us? The question revealed everything. They believed there was a price. An apology. A promise. A few rehearsed words exchanged for the restoration of my labor. I want nothing. Cody scoffed. Then why are we here? I didn't ask you to come. The snow thickened around them. Ethan looked toward the road, perhaps realizing for the first time that they would be driving back with the same problems they had brought. Lauren's voice became desperate. We can't keep living like this. You can. It will simply cost more effort than living through me. We're a family. No. We were an arrangement. I provided stability, and you provided the illusion that I belonged. She flinched. I expected satisfaction. Instead, I felt grief. 11 years do not disappear because the truth finally arrives. They remain inside you like scar tissue, proof that healing does not restore what was lost. Ethan asked quietly, Are you ever coming back? I looked at the three of them standing beneath the gray Montana sky. They seemed smaller than I remembered. Not helpless. Just exposed. No. Lauren began to cry again. This time, I felt nothing pulling me toward her. I closed the door and listened to their footsteps cross the porch. Their car started a few minutes later. The engine faded down the road until my house was silent once more. That night, I made dinner for one. No complaints. No demands. No one waiting for me to solve tomorrow before it arrived. They had finally noticed I was gone. But by then, being noticed was no longer enough. So tell me, when respect appears only after comfort disappears, is it truly respect, or merely fear of paying the bill alone? 3 months passed before Lauren stopped calling every day. At first, the silence frightened me. I had spent so many years listening for trouble that peace felt suspicious. Every quiet evening seemed like the pause before an alarm. I would sit in my small kitchen, eating alone, and imagine the old house collapsing without me. A frozen pipe. A missed payment. A car stranded beside a Montana highway. Then I would remind myself that none of it belonged to me anymore. The hardest part was not leaving. It was refusing to return. People imagine that walking away from a family is one clean decision. It is not. You leave once with your body, then you must leave again every time the phone rings. Every message becomes another doorway. Every apology becomes a hand reaching through it, trying to drag you back into the same burning room. Lauren became skilled at finding different ways to knock. Some days she sounded angry. You abandoned us. Other days she sounded wounded. We never knew how much pressure you were under. Sometimes she used memories. Do you remember our first Christmas in the house? And when none of that worked, she used fear. The furnace may not last through winter. That message almost broke me. I remembered installing part of that furnace myself. I remembered crawling across the basement floor with frozen fingers while Ethan and Cody played video games upstairs. I remembered Lauren bringing me coffee, kissing my cheek, and telling me she did not know what she would do without me. Now she knew. She would hire someone. She would borrow money. She would learn. I deleted the message. A week later, Ethan found a way to reach me from another number. I answered because I thought it might be work. His voice was quieter than I remembered. My truck is gone, he said. I waited. The repair cost more than it was worth. I sold it for parts. I'm sorry to hear that. I take the bus now. There was accusation beneath the words, but not as much as before. Life had begun grinding the arrogance out of him. He told me he had lost his job after arriving late too many times. He had found another position at a warehouse, working nights for less money. He said his back hurt. His supervisor treated him badly. Nobody cared when he was tired. I almost told him that this was adulthood. Instead, I remained silent. "Did you hear me?" he asked. "I heard you. That's all you have to say? What do you want me to say?" He breathed into the phone. "I don't know. But I knew. He wanted me to tell him everything would be fine. He wanted me to drive back, buy another truck, speak to his supervisor, and place the world beneath his feet again. "I can't fix this for you," I said. "I didn't ask you to." "Yes, you did. You just didn't use the words." The line went quiet. Then he said something I had never expected. "I didn't know you were tired too." My hand tightened around the phone. For 11 years, I had waited to be seen. Now that the words finally came, they brought no relief. Recognition delivered after destruction is not gratitude. It is an autopsy. "I was always tired," I said. "Why didn't you tell us?" "I did." "No, you didn't." "I asked for help. I asked for respect. I asked you to clean one dinner table." He exhaled slowly. "I was an idiot. You were cruel." "I know." "No. You know now. That is different." He did not argue. Before hanging up, he asked whether we could meet someday. I told him I was not ready. He said he understood. For once, he did not demand anything. Cody took longer. His first real apology came in the form of a letter. 4 pages arrived at my house in an envelope addressed with handwriting I barely recognized. He wrote that losing the car had forced him to walk nearly 2 miles to work. He wrote that insurance companies did not care whether he was confused. Banks did not forgive him because paperwork was difficult. Landlords did not accept excuses. The world had been less patient than I was. He admitted that he had believed the household ran itself. He had assumed Lauren handled everything and that I merely contributed money because I had more of it. Then he wrote the sentence that stayed with me. "I thought helping us was the only reason you were there." I read it 3 times. There it was. The entire marriage reduced to one brutal truth. They had not believed I belonged because I loved them. They believed I belonged because I was useful. I placed the letter in a drawer and did not respond. Lauren came to see me near the end of winter. She arrived alone. The snowbanks along the road had turned gray, and the sky hung low over the town. When I opened the door, she looked older. Not dramatically. Just enough for me to notice that worry had replaced the confidence she once carried. "I won't stay long," she said. I let her inside. She looked around the house. There were books on the shelves now. New curtains. A heavy wooden table I had built with my own hands. My life no longer looked temporary. "You seem comfortable," she whispered. "I am." The answer hurt her. She sat across from me and folded her hands. For several moments, neither of us spoke. Then she apologized. Not for the boys. For herself. She said she had remained silent because defending me would have meant confronting them. She feared they would accuse her of choosing me over their father. She feared losing their affection. So she allowed them to diminish me because she believed I was strong enough to endure it. "You always handled everything," she said. "That did not mean nothing hurt. I know that now." I looked at the woman I had loved and understood that she was telling the truth. It still changed nothing. She asked whether there was any road back. I thought about the old house. The winters. The repairs. The dinners eaten beneath a silence that always protected everyone except me. "No," I said. Her face crumpled, but she nodded. "I thought you might say that. Then why come?" "Because you deserve to hear that I failed you." Those words reached deeper than the apologies from her sons. Not deep enough. She left without asking for money. Without mentioning the furnace. Without telling me how difficult life had become. At the door, she turned. They noticed now. I almost smiled. That was never the point. After she drove away, I stood outside beneath the fading sky. Somewhere beyond the hills was the life I had carried for 11 years. It continued without me, harder and smaller, but alive. I no longer needed it to collapse. I no longer needed them to suffer. Consequences had done their work. They had taught Ethan responsibility, Cody humility, and Lauren the cost of silence. They had taught me something too. Leaving was not revenge. It was the first honest thing I had done for myself in years. They finally understood my value when they could no longer use it. I finally understood my value when I stopped offering it to people who refused to see me. Perhaps they changed. Perhaps one day I will forgive them completely. But forgiveness does not require returning to the place where you were broken. So tell me, when a family learns to respect you only after losing you, do they deserve another chance? Or has the lesson already come too late? Spring arrived late in Montana. The snow withdrew from the fields in dirty strips, revealing broken branches, dead grass, and everything winter had hidden. I understood the feeling. For years, I had buried resentment beneath duty. Once I stopped covering it, the damage was impossible to ignore. My new life remained quiet. I worked. I cooked for myself. I repaired only what belonged to me. Some evenings, I drove beyond town and parked beside a river where the mountains darkened against the sunset. I would sit there until the cold entered the truck, listening to water move over stone. Nobody called my name. Nobody needed money. Nobody had broken something and decided it was my emergency. I had once believed loneliness was the worst fate a man could suffer. I know better now. There is a loneliness far worse than an empty house. It is sitting at a crowded table while everyone around you values only what you provide. Alone, I was no longer invisible. Ethan continued writing occasionally. His messages changed over time. At first, they were reports of hardship disguised as conversation. His night shifts. His aching back. The bus arriving late. The humiliating calculations he made before buying groceries. Then he stopped mentioning problems. He began asking questions. How was work? Was the new town peaceful? Had I finished the table I was building? Those questions unsettled me more than his anger had. Anger was easy to reject. Kindness required judgment. I answered cautiously. Yes, work was fine. Yes, the town was peaceful. Yes, the table was finished. I gave him facts without opening doors. Cody remained silent after his letter. I wondered whether he regretted writing it or whether shame had finally taught him restraint. Part of me wanted to respond. Another part remembered the photograph of the impound notice and the command beneath it. Fix this. 2 words can reveal an entire relationship. I kept his letter in the drawer. Not because I treasured it. Because it reminded me never to return. Lauren signed the divorce papers in April. There was no courtroom battle. No shouting. No attempt to take what I had earned. Perhaps guilt had exhausted her appetite for conflict. Perhaps she understood that fighting for my money would prove everything I believed about our marriage. We met in a lawyer's office halfway between our towns. She wore the blue coat I had bought her on our 10th Christmas together. Seeing it felt like discovering a piece of my former life walking toward me without permission. We sat across from each other beneath fluorescent lights. The papers waited between us. 11 years reduced to signatures, dates, and divided property. The house would be sold. The remaining mortgage would be paid from the proceeds. Whatever remained would be split according to the agreement. Lauren stared at the page for a long time. I thought we would grow old there, she said. So did I. Do you hate me? The question sounded sincere. I considered lying. Hatred would have been easier for her to understand. Hatred still contains attachment. It means the wound remains alive. No, I said. I don't trust you. She lowered her eyes. That's worse. Yes. Her pen trembled as she signed. When it was my turn, my hand remained steady. The marriage ended with a quiet scratch of ink. Outside, Lauren stood beside her car while wine moved through the bare trees. "Ethan wants to see you," she said. "I know. He means it this time. I'm sure he believes he does." "And Cody?" "I received his letter. He spent days writing it." "That doesn't obligate me to answer." She winced. I was not trying to hurt her. I had simply stopped shaping truth into softer forms so other people could swallow it comfortably. She wrapped her arms around herself. "The boys talk about you all the time." "What do they say?" "That they were wrong. That they didn't understand what you did. Ethan says he remembers things now. You teaching him to drive. Waiting outside the emergency room when he broke his wrist. Cody remembers you staying up all night before his math exam." Memories had finally become visible because I was no longer creating new ones. "I remember those things too," I said. "Doesn't that matter?" It mattered then. Her eyes filled with tears. "Is there nothing left?" I looked at her and searched honestly. There were memories. There was grief. There was the faint outline of the man I had been when I believed devotion could force people to love me properly. But there was no marriage left. "No," I said. She nodded and drove away. The house sold 2 months later. I returned once to collect the last of my tools from the garage. The rooms were empty, and every sound echoed. Pale rectangles marked the walls where family photographs had hung. Scratches remained on the doorframe where we had measured Ethan and Cody as they grew. I ran my fingers over those marks. For a moment, I saw everything again. Ethan at 14, pretending not to smile when I bought him his first proper winter coat. Cody asleep on the couch while I finished a school project he had forgotten until midnight. Lauren dancing with me in the kitchen before the boys came home. Not every moment had been false. That was the cruelest truth. People do not need to deceive you every day to destroy you. They only need to reveal, at the decisive moment, that your love has never carried the weight you imagined. I found an old photograph beneath a workbench. The 4 of us stood beside a lake. Ethan and Cody were younger. Lauren had her arm around my waist. I was smiling with the exhausted pride of a man who believed he had finally built something permanent. I placed the photograph in my coat pocket. Then I locked the garage and left the keys on the counter. Ethan was waiting outside. I stopped when I saw him beside the road. He looked thinner, older. His warehouse uniform was faded, and his hands were rough in a way they had never been when I supported him. "I heard you were coming," he said. "Your mother told you?" He nodded. Neither of us moved closer. "I won't ask you for anything," he said. "That would be a first." He accepted the blow without defending himself. "I deserve that." The humility in his voice sounded real. That made the moment harder. He told me he had begun paying Lauren rent. Cody was working extra hours to clear his debts. They repaired the washing machine together after watching instructional videos. The repair took 2 days, flooded the basement again, and nearly ended in a fight. "But we did it," he said. "I'm glad." He looked toward the empty house. "I understand now." "No," I said. "You understand part of it." His eyes returned to mine. "What part am I missing?" "You know what I did because you had to do it after I left. You still don't know what it felt like to do it for people who treated me as though I was nothing." His face tightened. "I can't change that." "No. But I can be sorry." "Yes." The wind moved between us. Then he asked whether he could hug me. For a long moment, I said nothing. Finally, I stepped forward. His arms closed around me, uncertain at first, then tightly. I felt him shaking. I placed one hand against his back, but I did not call him son. When we separated, he was crying. "I did notice," he whispered. I looked at the empty house behind him. "You noticed the absence." He nodded. Maybe that was the beginning of respect. Maybe it was only guilt. I no longer needed to decide. I drove away without looking back. In my pocket, the old photograph felt heavier than paper and lighter than obligation. I had forgiven enough to release my anger. Not enough to surrender my freedom. So tell me, if the people who broke you finally change, must you return to prove you forgive them, or is walking forward the only forgiveness you owe yourself?